Welcome back for another helping of Oysters, Clams, and Cockles, bringing you the best TV shows and movies weekly in an easily digestible podcast packed with laughs by me, Ross Bolen, and my dear friend, Mr. Barrett Dudley. Barrett, how goes it?
Oh, it's going all right. You know, just enjoying the week, cruising through old February.
It is the month of February.
It's February.
Just
in case you didn't know that.
I don't like the way that's spelled.
This is actually, a lot of people are talking about this. This is our last podcast before Valentine's Day.
A lot of people have been saying that.
Yeah. This is well, not our last one, but our last regular ad-based one before Valentine's Day. There will also be a Sopranos
on Friday.
On Thursday,
Friday,
excuse me. Covering one of the episodes of the first season, which
episode 11.
We'll also do that podcast prior to Valentine's Day. But
this
is the last ad-based podcast before Valentine's Day 2021.
And love is in the air.
Love is in the air.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lots of candy hearts, lots of red, lots of chocolate-covered strawberries and roses and flowers. And
are you a sweets guy, Barrett? People need to know this about you.
Oh, big sweet tooth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Me too
very,
now.
Very big sweet tooth.
I went through a long stretch of my life, probably about a 10-year period, where I was totally out on cake, cupcakes, sweets, candy.
Yep.
I don't know what happened. I was just like, it didn't work for me anymore. And now I'm all the way back. And it's I'll be honest, it's expensive, this lifestyle. The dessert menus on these takeout restaurant, it's tempting and it's expensive. Like desserts are expensive.
They are expensive. But here's the thing. They throwing on a little dessert with your takeout menu, it's one of the small joys that we have in this pandemic life.
It is.
And so I say go for it, because that $7 or $8 on that dessert, it's just a drink that you're not buying at the bar. It's just a movie ticket that you're not buying right now.
It's a good point.
You probably have fewer tanks of gas. Like, there's so many things that you're not spending the money on right now. Treat yourself a little bit.
It's funny. Two of the things you named, two of them, I have zero budget for now. Drinking and gas.
Getting gas, that's right.
Look at me, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
I'm living in the future.
So, get that. And, I on Super Bowl Sunday, we're going to talk about Super Bowl a little bit. I was home, low key thing, but I still wanted junk food. So I baked a cake, and I was very much looking forward to this cake. And it came out very dense and not that good.
I'm sorry, you made a Super Bowl cake?
I made a cake. Yeah. And I love tiramisu. Speaking of sweets, that's probably my favorite, like fancy dessert.
Oh yeah.
Beyond just ice cream.
I had some this past weekend. I won't lie.
Fucking love tiramisu.
Cheesecake.
So this was a tiramisu cake. So it wasn't all the fluffy ladyfingers layers. It was just a cake with a delicious mascarpone icing.
You had to have it for the big game,
I nailed
folks.
the icing. The cake didn't turn out that well. It was kind of dense. It was not that good. I just would have been better off just throwing on a piece of tiramisu from Home Slice. Shouts to Home Slice, sponsor the podcast. And just get your point being, get your dessert. Have a plan together for Valentine's Day. Make sure the dessert is good. Don't bake a cake that you've never baked before, because it might turn out dense.
You've been watching too much Great British Baking Show, dude. That's what happened. You got cocky.
Yeah.
A tiramisu cake on Super Bowl Sunday.
But what an
animal.
It was easier than actually putting together a tiramisu. See, that's the thing.
Okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
That makes, because the tiramisu, a very complicated piece of dessert
It's
art.
a more complicated thing. Yeah, it is.
Here's a random piece of information in the intro of today's show.
Here's a nice piece of shit.
I started watching the Netflix original Ma Rainey's Black Bottom that dropped last year.
Is this a movie?
Yeah, it's Viola Davis as Ma Rainey, Chadwick Boseman as Levy.
Yeah, okay.
The late, great Chadwick.
The way you framed it, you started watching it.
Sorry, yes. I have not finished the film.
Okay.
I'm about halfway through. It was one that I had intended in getting to at some point, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it so far. The performance from Chadwick, having not seen Black Panther, still that guy. Should have thrown that on my list of insane, shocking movies I haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
This is the best performance I've seen.
Okay.
From Chadwick.
Yeah. So this one is getting thrown around in awards talk this year. And I know
that makes sense based on the performances.
I know it was nominated for the Golden Globes, for some of the categories in the Golden Globes, and I think that there is Oscar buzz as well.
It's about a 1927 Chicago blues singer, Ma Rainey, and her band, Levy, played by Chadwick, is part of that band. He's a very gifted member of that band, and some conflict arises based on his gifts versus Ma Rainey's, who is like this legendary blues figure with the makeup and the fucking attitude, and it's just intense performances, bro. There's a monologue from Chadwick. Basically, I'll just give you a very light spoiler synopsis here. There's a point in the film where a white man enters the room that the band is preparing in for their performance. And Levy, Chadwick's character, kind of saddles up to the white man and gives him a little bit of a yes, sir, tap dancing routine sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So all the other band members, after the white man leaves, give him a hard time. And he breaks into this 10-minute monologue about why he handles the white man the way he does. That, like, you know how there's parts of movies that you just get floored? Everything else completely fades away and you're completely sucked in by what somebody is doing performance-wise. It was one of those. Like, he absolutely... If the rest of the movie is awful, it will still have been worth it to watch that one scene. That's how good it is. So, that's one I'm going to close out at some point this week when I get more time. And I also just wanted to reiterate that The Little Things was ass, and there is no defending it. There is no defending it. Too many people on Twitter saying, oh, you know, what about Jared Leto's performance? And he's getting nominated. And I will not hear it. I will not. Also, I watched the second trailer specifically for Judas and the Black Messiah.
Yes.
And this is the most pumped I have been for a movie in 2021.
Yeah, this one looks really good and very intense.
The area of history we are exploring alone and that piece of American history with the Black Panthers from the angle that you got to go watch the trailer. I'm not going to do any spoilers. Judas and the Black Messiah, it drops on Friday, I believe. HBO Max.
Yes.
Go watch the trailer, watch trailer number 2, and get excited for that one.
For some reason, you saying white man like that just made me think of the Disney animated film Peter Pan, which came out in 1953, mind you. And there's a scene, which I'm sure has aged terribly.
It has, Barrett.
Where the Native Americans sing a song called What Made the Red Man Red?
Yeah, Barrett, that one.
And they smoke a peace pipe and they say how a lot, and it's not good.
Look, as a Disney fanatic.
But the you were saying like white man with like the same intonation that they say red man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Look, when Disney Plus dropped, Peter Pan's one of the first films I revisited.
Oh, yeah?
And it is...
I mean, you gotta love that snapping alligator, right?
It is fun.
What's not to like about... Isn't the alligator's name like TikTok or something?
No, he just has a clock inside of him.
That alligator has a name.
Does it?
I'm pretty sure it does.
You'd have to Google it. Okay. But Peter Pan racially has aged quite poorly.
As a lot of those films have. Yes, the crocodile is literally named TikTok. I nailed that.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Good for Barrett. Good for Barrett. I consider myself to be a Peter Pan expert, and that's not one I knew.
Well, the more you know.
But I did know that it is racially awkward.
Yes.
Very racially awkward at this point. How the hell did we get to Peter Pan?
We're all over the place today, Ross. That's what's great about
That's what's so good about this show. Yeah, you never
Yeah.
know what you're going to get, especially up front. Let's get into today's episode. This was just the intro. Today's episode of OCC is brought to you by Athletic Greens, the most comprehensive daily nutritional beverage I've ever tried. It's phenomenal. I've been having it in the morning often, so is Barrett. All of us have so many stressors in life. It's difficult to maintain effective nutritional habits and give our bodies the nutrients they need to thrive. The busier we get, you know, this is one of the first things that falls to the wayside, and we're trying to balance exercise, sleep, stress. A lot of us simply just aren't eating enough of the right foods, and that's where Athletic Greens helps Barrett and I out with their daily all-in-one superfood powder that's your nutritional essential. It's by far the easiest and most delicious nutritional habit that you can add to your health routine today and empower yourself to take ownership of your health. With one tasty scoop of Athletic Greens, you get more than 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food-sourced ingredients, including a multivitamin, multi-mineral, probiotic, green superfood, and more that all work together to fill the nutritional gaps in your diet, increase energy and focus, aid with digestion, and support a healthy immune system, all without the need to take multiple products, which is one of the main keys here. Athletic Greens, you're going to get everything you need, Barrett. Everything you need. Have you enjoyed your Athletic Greens?
I have. As you were saying, we're into the, just the longest stretch ever of this pandemic. We've been cooking our asses off, but it's very easy to get out of that habit. You start ordering more takeout. You let those good habits slip, and
next thing you know,
Athletic Greens comes in there and it picks you back up. It helps you out with making sure you're getting the right vitamins and nutrients and healthy supplements in your in your sustenance.
Vitamin D, So go to athleticgreens.com/dragon today and join health experts, athletes, and health-conscious podcasters around the world who make a daily commitment to their health every single day. When you do go to athleticgreens.com/dragon, you'll get a free year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs today. Again, simply visit athleticgreens.com/dragon, free year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs today. And now it's time for everybody's favorite segment, Tidbits and Such with Barrett. Barrett, let's talk about some tids, some bits, and some such.
Okay, let's do some bits and some such and some tids. You hear about this? You hear about
You seen this? Have you heard about this?
You hear about this this big game on Sunday?
I watched the big game.
The Super Bowl was this past Sunday.
It was.
And as I kind of mentioned up front in the intro a little bit, this was the first time in a very long time, hell, maybe ever, that I've sat down at home on my couch with, one other person, basically.
Minimal distractions.
No, yeah, zero distractions, essentially, and just like watched the game, watched all the commercials,
Took it in.
Exactly. It was good. That was nice. Although, given the choice, I'll still choose hanging out with people versus the not hanging out with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but so I was pretty tuned into the commercials. Did you have any favorites, anything that stood out to you?
I literally didn't watch the commercials.
Okay.
There's only been a couple Super Bowls where I was so not enthralled that I didn't even care to see the commercials. And this year I just wasn't really interested based on the lack of momentum in that space of late.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic stuff. I'm just sick to death, and there was a lot of these I noticed, especially leading up to the game. The very serious in tone, like, we're all in this together.
Yes.
Got to bond together behind COVID-19. Like, I can't fucking do them anymore. So I just was, like, out on the commercials basically the entire game.
Well, it was a pretty lackluster year for the commercials overall, I will say. I feel like usually there's, like, at least a couple that are really, really good.
Just big standouts,
Big
right?
standouts. And then there are, like, a few others that are all, like, pretty good, and then everything else is kind of trash.
Yeah.
Well, this year I felt like there were only the few pretty good ones, and then everything else is trash. You didn't have those few that are really, really
game breakers,
really awesome ones. The one that I think got the most buzz on social media was probably Drake from State Farm.
That's the one that I saw the most buzz from.
Which was pretty good, but my favorite was actually Matthew McConaughey as Flat Matthew in the 3D Doritos commercial.
Did not see this one yet.
Okay. Very, very good.
Flat Matthew.
Yeah. He is. I'm a huge McConaughey fan, so it was right up my alley anyway. But he was kind of the perfect guy for this specific commercial,
right?
And also, 3D Doritos is something that I fondly remember as a youth.
Yeah.
And that commercial, I was like, I'm about to go get some 3D Doritos.
Next time I see some, I'm snapping them up.
I gotta snap me up some of them 3D Doritos.
Hell yeah.
Get in my belly. And that just kind of like remembering the 3D Doritos and then watching all the other commercials, kind of like the insight that I garnered this year was how much has just completely flown over my head all the other years with Super Bowl commercials. Because there are so many old, dated references, old songs, old people that they bring back. We had George Costanza in a commercial this year.
Saw that one
Jason
too.
Alexander. Whomp There It Is was played in a commercial. Like, there's and it's
a lot of nostalgia draws.
Lots and lots of nostalgia, 90s plays, and like all this type of shit. And I'm like, this is always how it goes? Do I just miss half of the references? Is because it's like at 34 years old, I'm still in the big target demo.
Right.
But typically these advertisements, I feel like who they're really going after is like 20s.
Right. 18 to 25 tends to be
18
like
to 24 is like the very impressionable, like that's that you want to like establish like brand habits with that group so that they continue. Anyway, so I just thought it was weird because the commercials felt very pitched to our age range.
I have noticed this with the Super Bowl before in particular, that it's almost like how Hollywood will rely on the hits. And now we've talked a lot recently about how people aren't willing to take risks.
That's right. Yeah.
So with the Super Bowl commercials, they've obviously found a lot of success hitting these nostalgia veins over the course of the generations of Super Bowl advertising that they've done. And it feels like that's the safest play now, especially with COVID. Like, that if you can hit a nostalgia bell or like one inside joke that maybe it's a little more niche, and it's not everybody's going to get it, but the people that do are really going to remember it,
Yep.
then that's better than just a whiff.
I think it probably also has a lot to do with the fact that you want your commercial to hit during the Super Bowl, obviously, but where you really want it to hit is on Twitter and on social media and with word of mouth and on YouTube, and you want it shared. And so it's like, it's smart to probably have those things in there that like the people like us would be like, oh yeah, you got to see this, you got to see this. I remember that, and we're like kind of the sharers, if you will,
Right.
and then they've got more chance to succeed and go viral essentially post Super Bowl.
I need to know how much they paid Drake for that.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, probably $1 million.
I'd be shocked if it was less than $1 million.
Yeah, gotta be.
Which is wild.
So, yeah, and we can use that to segue into the other conversation that we obviously need to have about the Super Bowl commercials. Is that State Farm very clearly spent a lot of money for their Drake commercial, but nobody spent as much money, and I'm doing air quotes because while it was all balanced on their books and on their bottom line, I'm sure it's possible that no money actually changed hands since the CBS broadcast channel showing the Super Bowl is, in fact, the owner of this streaming service. But Paramount Plus had like a 4-commercial series that played over the series of the first half.
It was one of the big buzz things that came from the game was how much Paramount Plus went all in on their advertising here.
And we've talked a little bit about Paramount, and we've talked a little bit about Paramount Plus, and we've also talked a little bit about CBS All Access. And just, from a number standpoint, from the amount of exposure that they bought in the Super Bowl, we are talking like tens and tens of millions of dollars that they spent on advertising during this big game to start pitching up and talking up and getting people to subscribe to Paramount Plus.
So it's replacing CBS All Access.
Yes, it's essentially like HBO Go and all the HBO thing kind of like transitioned into HBO Max, which was like the combination of Warner Media and HBO and a bunch of other stuff all into this one massive hub. Well, CBS All Access is doing the same thing. It's taking all of their various properties, CBS and Viacom and Paramount and everything else that they own. Showtime might be getting folded into this at some point as well because that's a CBS brand as well.
No shit.
Yeah, and they have, again, in a weird decision, to me personally, decided to put it under the Paramount umbrella.
And I think the thing that these
As
big
Paramount
companies,
Plus.
these big companies, what they realized is, okay, we have too many brands, and we have to have a better tent to put them all under.
Yeah.
And this one that, like we talked about when they originally started Paramount Plus and kicking around this whole thing, it was like they believed that to be the most brandable and brand recognizable version of what they own.
Yeah.
And you and I were kind of perplexed by that. We were like, I don't know, man. It's like,
well, I guess when you really start thinking about it and you analyze it, I guess it does make some sense because I think that for the most part, people connotate CBS with a very certain type of like procedural drama. It's the home of like CSI and NCIS and like the shows that are. Do you know who watches CBS? It is always the #1 rated broadcast channel with old people.
okay.
It's that, and people kind of can think about it like that. It's also, I'm pretty sure, the home of like shows like The Big Bang Theory. You know what I mean? Like CBS is not known for its groundbreaking
Anything, really.
network material.
Right, yeah.
Right? It's not known for like its smart comedies the way that NBC was.
Right.
It's not known for its reality shows or its Shonda Rhimes shows the way that ABC is. Right?
Yeah,
So
it's kind of random
It's not known
shit.
for like great funny comics and animated series the way that Fox is. You know what I mean? So it's like it's very much like the lowest common denominator. Just they're hitting doubles and triples and singles, but there's no home runs there. They've got shows that old people like. They've got The Good Wife, that type of stuff. So anyway, this CBS brand, it's just not it's not sexy.
Right.
But you also can't take something like Viacom and put that as the app because Viacom is not a brand that the Viacom encapsulates like MTV and VH1.
Yeah, Viacom is like the one that's like the stock.
But yeah, exactly.
you would
so you're
buy.
not going to use that type of brand name. And
Right.
then like Paramount and like, well, I guess people, they know Paramount from the movies and they recognize the mountain, and it's also kind of like malleable because people don't really know what it is.
Right. So it can be everything.
So it can be everything. Yeah.
And I get it from that angle too. I mean, you got to make a play. HBO Max was their play on the other side of this.
Yeah.
Paramount Plus is the play here. I understand that like they're trying to find ways to get all of their product under one brand that works so they can make as much money as possible and have the best offering possible.
So did you see these commercials?
No.
Okay. So the gist is essentially they've got some of their most their most intriguing content and content personalities all kind of together, and the people, the characters are making their way up like a mountain. Basically, they're in like the Arctic or something.
Okay.
And I can't remember exactly why that is or what they're doing on this mountain.
Sure.
But they've got Jean-Luc Picard, a.k.a. Sir Patrick Stewart. They've got Snooki. They've got Bryson DeChambeau.
Wow.
They've got Beavis and Butthead. And a couple of other personalities, characters, things like that. And then Tony Romo and Jim Nantz are like announcing this trek up the mountain.
Okay.
You haven't seen it, so the question is kind of moot. But my question was like, okay, you're spending all this money. You've brought in your best and your brightest here to pitch me on, and I've got Snooki, Picard, and Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, it's problematic.
Like, and I love Tony Romo, and I love his broadcasting skills, and I love watching golf, and Jim Nantz is a great golf broadcaster. But like, I already watched that shit on my regular CBS YouTube TV stuff live.
Right.
Like, I'm not looking to fire up Paramount Plus to watch golf.
Yeah, and that's where their confusion with like CBS All Access and what that was providing. You can see the complicated nature of what they're trying to accomplish. It's like you still walk away from what you just described as those commercials with like but what am I? Why? Like why?
Oh, they're going to the top of Paramount Mountain.
Good. They're climbing the logo.
Yeah.
Great. I'm glad that we all got that. That's huge for them. Huge.
I'm pulling up top stories here. Golf News Net has the headline. What the hell? What? The headline is, who is the golfer in the Paramount Plus commercials, and why is he in them? Why would Golf News not... What? What is happening here?
Content. It's content on the internet.
I mean, I guess if you're just like a casual or not a golf fan, then you don't know who that is. But obviously, if you're the slightest bit tuned in, you definitely know who heavyweight Bryson DeChambeau is.
Yeah, he's one of like the top 10 most popular guys, I would argue. Somewhere in there, 25 at least.
Most infamous, most notorious. I don't know.
He's in the news constantly. Whatever. Well known. Yeah.
Let's see. Colbert was on these things. There were some black and white. There were some characters in black and white. Can't tell who those are. Maybe looks like I Love Lucy. Dora the Explorer was in on them. DJ Khaled. The Survivor guy. What's that guy's name? Mark Probst.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I mean, I do get like the going all in on this was effective because it did get enough people talking, and it did come up in my social circles multiple times. On most of my social circles only exist on the internet now, but they did come up because it worked. Like this was enough of an announcement, which is really what you need if you want to have success with one of these streaming platforms. But then I think, to your point, the problem with Paramount Plus is it's like, what is the big draw?
Yeah, and
at least Disney Plus had The Mandalorian.
Exactly. That is the biggest issue facing this streaming service right now. Is that, to me, it doesn't look like they have anything as of yet that is like, well, shit.
I can't miss that.
I can't miss that.
Yeah, you've got, if you're going to launch a streaming service that's trying to get us to subscribe, and this one has commercials too, like Hulu, you have to get the commercial-free version, which is even more expensive or whatever, like, then you better have something I feel like I can't miss, because we've hit sort of that inflection point where it's like, look, we've all got 7 of these, all right? You better have something big if you want to draw us in with a whole nother one. Paramount Plus, CBS, Jim fucking Nantz. Weird situation. Anyway, yeah, the big game.
But that was definitely they dropped the bag for their marketing push there.
Indeed, they did.
Okay, let's move into a little bit of celeb goss. Yeah? I know you're a dot guy. Are you planning on watching this Framing Britney Spears FX on Hulu documentary?
I'm very interested in this one.
Yeah.
Because, look, you and I grew up perfect Britney Spears time.
Oh, yes.
Okay? Like, she got huge when you and I were, like, entering puberty.
Yeah.
So Britney Spears was the hottest, most famous person in the world.
Yes.
I mean, she was, like, essentially white female Michael Jackson for all intents and purposes for us. For real. She was the most famous person in the world. She was putting out hits constantly. She was a sex symbol on another level that anybody had ever seen before. I mean, talking about one of the things that's disturbing about this documentary is they get into the things like journalists were asking her about her tits when she was 16 years old.
Yeah.
It took American pop culture and celebrity culture to another level when Britney Spears hit. And the fallout from that has been not only fascinating, but pretty horrifying from a mental health and legal standpoint. Everybody wants to know, how did it come to this? We all remember the famous, most public meltdown she had where she shaved her head and all that stuff. And Britney's kind of become this, like, just another one of those crazy, most famous A-listers ever that just, like, falls into this bucket of, like, Britney being Britney. Her life's just so wacky, and, like, who knows why she's doing these weird dances looking like she's been strung out on methadone for days on TikTok or whatever, Instagram, that she can't, like, her story is probably the most fascinating celebrity story that I know almost nothing about.
Yeah, and for the unaware, this documentary comes after, I would say, the last year, the whole kind of hashtag Free Britney movement has really picked up steam. She has
due to social media.
Yeah, and some of the stuff that you mentioned, some of these really just kind of like strange,
weird, bizarre
awkward
videos,
social media posts.
There were people saying, like, wear a yellow shirt in your next video if you need help, because everybody knows she's legally under the power of her
and this
family.
What this boils down to is that she is in a conservatorship with her father, which basically means that she does not have rights or access to anything that she owns.
She's a child.
Any money that she makes.
He gets all the decision-making power.
And the rumors are that he has control over literally everything, whether that's like who gets to see her and when she has access to her phone, what she can do and say and post on social media.
Right.
When everything. She can go out, go get groceries, like everything.
And of course, the argument for a conservatorship, whatever it's called, has to be that this person is a danger to themselves and cannot function without the help of someone else, which is a decision that at some point a court made.
Yes.
And now there is all this interest in reversing that, or how she could ever get out of that, or is this a dangerous, toxic situation?
Totally.
And there's a lot of evidence to point toward that it is a toxic situation, and it seems very problematic. So that there's finally a documentary that's not just some social media speculation focused on the Britney Spears story. I'm absolutely going to watch this.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, and like you said, like this is just really touching on something that we very much lived through and were a total part of.
Barrett, I have admitted to literally printing out. I printed off the internet photos of Britney Spears and kept them in a binder. I'm serious, bro. Like, I had a poster of her on my wall, but like,
I had a Britney poster.
She was like a god.
Yes,
when we were kids, dude.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't even like, oh man, I would love to kiss Britney Spears. Like, you wouldn't even have thought of that shit. Like this was not an attainable human.
Yeah.
She was a god.
Yeah.
And then she's now like some weird conservatorship robot person.
Yes, and obviously it's like at this point everybody just wants the best for her. And
or better.
Sure
we all seem to want better than what we're being shown.
She is okay and not under any type of like weird,
duress,
prison-like duress. Yeah.
Which is what it certainly seems like. Yeah,
it's all very weird. So this is definitely something that seems to have really bubbled up over the weekend. There were lots of stuff on Twitter, lots of headlines, and so I think I'm going to try to get to this week. I generally like the documentaries. Well, that's not the. Let me start over. It was interesting in 2020 getting caught up with The Last Dance.
Okay.
Which was absolutely amazing and phenomenal, and I loved every single waking second of it.
Right.
But Jordan was a very big part of that documentary. So while we got a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, it also and was occasionally a little bit, questioning of Jordan's antics, it never really pushed.
It never went there.
It never really pushed the envelope to straight up say like, did Jordan kind of do some fucked up stuff? You know what I mean? It was like,
was he an asshole? Because
I mean-
Mike was always good. Like, even when it towed the line, it would pull back to like why he was this way.
Sure.
Here's
Yeah.
like, it gave him the benefit of the doubt every time.
And it kind of it raised questions about the gambling, but then it also answered them, right? It kind of gave an explanation, like you're saying, and
it was able to carry the narrative from a biased standpoint.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it was a biased standpoint.
Yes, and I was totally okay with that because it at least touched on those topics. It didn't just completely ignore them,
And frankly, this was sports. It wasn't like a murder documentary or a kidnapping or some type of crazy mental health situation.
But now we have the Tiger doc on HBO, which I have also not watched yet. But
Haven't watched it.
Tiger is completely distanced from it. This
Him
is
and his
not-
agent had nothing to do with
They've
it.
had nothing to do with it. They maybe have even gone as far as to like kind of
They
like
condoned it.
condemned it.
Guess.
It. Yes.
They said did not condone it. They did not condone it. They condemned it. They said that this is not that this is basically a biased attempt at profiteering off of the life of a man who had nothing to do with this actual documentary. And it really, I mean, it's impossible to make the argument that this documentary will tell the full story because they only were able to interview people who are not currently in Tiger's life. So only people who have fallen out of grace with the man. Therefore, obviously, it is going to be a bit of a one-sided story.
And so at the same time, it's like you want those pieces of the story too, right?
But only if you're getting the full story.
Some of the stuff that I've heard about is like it's basically about how Tiger growing up and with the influence of his dad, like didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Like he was going to be the best golfer ever, and that was it. Like there was no
other
opportunity or time for anything else.
Right.
His dad like basically broke up with this is all
yes. This is one of the stories I've heard from it though.
But like basically broke up with a girlfriend of his because he was having too much of a normal fun life
and
his girlfriend.
She was taking up time that he could have been focused on golf.
On golf.
Yeah.
So it's like you want both sides of this. So it's just kind of a curiosity about these semi-biographical documentaries where it's like it's really hard to get that middle of the road story because you either have the blessing of the subject and it's clearly going to lean in favor of them and their greatness or their story.
Right.
Or you don't have their blessing and it's going to focus on like the darker, nastier side of things.
I mean, what you need is like the access that only time can give you. And the problem with these documentaries is, look, we're doing them in real time. Britney Spears is still in the conservatorship thingy.
Yep.
It's like this is very difficult to investigate as it's unfolding. So like the Keith Raniere thing and all the footage we got and all that shit, that was the result of time. If they had tried to do that several years earlier or in the midst of the vow still unfolding a little more, I don't know. It's just like, you understand what I'm saying? With Mike, his career has been over. They had all this access to all this footage and full access to Michael Jordan, but in order for them to get this documentary, he wanted to have creative control too. So we lost some of the non-biased, maybe journalistic elements of the thing, but we got the documentary. And like I said, with that one, it's sports. But with Britney, this is somebody's life, and there's a lot of legal stuff tied up in it, and it's actively ongoing. So, of course, they don't have access to, like, everyone involved that you would need access to. You would need to interview the father, the family, Britney, the judge that put the thing in place, like all these people that obviously a bunch of which are going to say no.
Right, you're not going to get their voice.
Because it's an active situation, it's ongoing. Legally, they're not allowed to probably in a lot of cases, so it's... To your point, I'm very interested to see what we get here in terms of will it matter? Or is this just a money grab because they know we'll watch it because it's a fascinating story, but will it tell anything we don't know? Will it dive into areas of this and actually be productive? I guess is the thing that I end up asking.
Yeah, and the last thing I was just going to say, it's just like, I don't know, the celebrities as youths and just celebrity in general is such it can be a really, really daunting path. And frankly, it's one that I would say most people at least toy with the fantasy about. I know I sure as shit do. I like, point blank, you ask me, if I want to be famous? The answer is yes.
Right.
Like I don't have to think twice about that.
Right.
But then I think about like the Weeknd's whole year-long performance art thing with the bandages and the plastic surgery and like what he's basically the meta commentary that he's delivering on it. And you watch somebody like Britney Spears, or you think back to Michael Jackson's horribly fucked up childhood and what that made him, kind of
Resulted
turn
in.
out to be. And like, I don't know, man, it's just all so messed up and scary.
Well-
And the bottom line on this Britney thing is that everybody is rooting for her, and we hope that she figures it out and finds, freedom and happiness and all of that.
This is my last take I'll give on the celebrity situation, and it's that it's levels to this shit just like with everything else, and the ones that I really find myself rooting for and feeling for are the ones like Britney, like Bieber, that hit that it's not that they're a celebrity, it's that they became one of the biggest celebrities in history
Yep.
at a very young age.
Yes.
And the money and fame that comes with that. Look, managing young adulthood as a regular citizen is
As a not famous
nearly
person.
impossible.
Yes.
To do so as a wealthy star whose entire world perspective has been completely muddied by this fantasy life
Yeah.
is impossible.
Yeah.
So like Bieber being like kind of a little shit is best case scenario. Like the fact that he hasn't burned down neighborhoods or like committed heinous crimes, fingers crossed and knock on wood that he hasn't, and we don't just not know yet,
Yeah.
like
yeah.
is a miracle. I'm a Bieber fan.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
Like the fact that dude is trying, I'm like, that's all I can ask for. Your life was fucked. You had no chance in hell of being normal. Absolutely no chance. Asking him to be normal is insane.
Yeah, and that is one thing I wanted to throw out there, and I won't comment further until I've watched. But the documentary also does not paint Justin Timberlake in a very nice light either.
That's an interesting.
Just the way that he kind of aided and abetted some of what came down on her from like a double standard and kind of like slut shaming point of view, and basically the way that he kind of like what was a party to that narrative against her.
When she was young?
Yeah, and in a pretty misogynistic way.
Yeah, I
and now
remember a little bit of that.
I'm not going to bury JT because most 19-year-old
He was
dudes
very young.
are horrible people, basically.
Yeah. Sadly, yes.
And I don't want to, he feels like a guy that has probably done a little bit of growing, although there are also cheating rumors all over the place with him about his current relationship. So, he's another example of like way, way, way famous and rich at a very, very young age. And
like no matter how normal JT looks.
yeah.
And presents.
Yeah.
Come on.
That lives with him, right?
Yeah, you cannot avoid the impact of what he grew up in. You can't do it.
We'll have to come back to that and comment further when we've watched it.
Yes.
One more segue into my final tidbit here. Here's my Dumois moment. I haven't brought them up in a few weeks, and I learned something that I was not keenly aware of. That comes as no surprise, but I just thought it was interesting, and I definitely never stopped and thought about this. But were you aware? Did you know that most celebrities, for any type of public appearance, whether it's a red carpet or an event, or especially on something like a talk show or something, are basically doped up on some type of drug cocktail to be able to perform properly at these events?
So I have oftentimes considered that a lot of the celebrities we see on stage, especially at award ceremonies, are under the influence of little helpers.
Yes.
Like Xanax and the
Yes.
like. And then at one point, as a dude who's been going to the psychiatrist for over a decade and has a Xanax prescription, alprazolam specifically, if you're listening and you're part of my insurance company, I know a lot about this shit. And at one time, I was actually given a different drug that is a heart, a blood pressure medication.
Yes.
And when it was prescribed to me,
a beta blocker?
yes, my doctor told me. So this is one that doctors, CEOs, pilots,
Politicians?
that politicians, celebrities take before they have speeches,
Yep.
award shows.
Somebody like President Biden, before he gives his inauguration speech, 100% on beta blockers.
Yes.
Yep.
So that at that point is when it started to click for me. Like, oh my God! Like most of the people we see giving speeches are probably on something.
Yes.
Because it's an enormous amount of pressure, obviously.
Yes.
And in the pharmaceutical obsessed world that we live in, that was an unavoidable element that Hollywood was going to suck down.
Yeah, it's just one more, like, I'm not really saying one thing or another about it. I think it's probably totally fine if it's administered properly and
Used responsibly.
and used responsibly and not abused. But just the way that there are filters in plastic surgery, and when you start to become famous, you get this massive glow up, and you no longer look like a normal person because you have access to your glam squad and the best health in the world and the best fitness in the world and all this other stuff that makes that you get flipped once you become a celebrity. One other thing to throw in that bag is
ripping the curtain back.
Yeah, is that like they're perfectly charming and amazing at speaking and being in public because they're also getting help with that. And I really never thought about that. But it's like you watch these people like just come charm the pants off of you on Jimmy Fallon or whatever.
It's like, wow, that seemed like really not a big deal to them. They really handled that well.
Not nervous at all, like totally casual and charming. It's like,
what a social butterfly.
That is because they're on either Xanax or the other names that I can't remember, or they had an edible, or they are on beta blockers,
or both, or all three. Yeah, no, seriously though, like, and to Barrett's point, that element of celebrity culture is not something that has become didn't become all the way apparent to me until I reached my 30s. And the reason it became most apparent, Barrett, is because I started to see how people age. We've hit the age where like motherfuckers' faces change and they get wrinkles and lines, and you start to notice the difference between the people who know what they're doing, taking care of their faces, and the people who don't. And then what you learn is that these celebrities, this isn't an option. Like, when you become rich and famous, one of the people in charge of you is in charge of making sure your face looks very fucking good. So they give you the best face creams and treatments and acne treatments and like all kinds of crazy retinol and creams that regular ass people don't have any clue exist. So that just off that alone, there's a one-up. There's a huge difference between a regular person walking the street without access or even knowledge of all these products, which I understand that a lot of females listening know about. Men, far less of us know. And then a celebrity who's being treated up every single day to look their absolute best. Then on top of that, you add in the elements of like, once they're famous, they get everything free. So they're not even having to go pick all this shit.
No.
It's the best of the best new stuff getting sent to these people, and they're being begged to wear it. And then stuff like the cocktails that they get to be on for their performances and the like. It just, what it shows you is that the whole thing you're looking at is fake. It's just like with social media. It's 15 filters applied before you're ever getting the product, and then you end up comparing yourself to this thing unhealthily, and it's like, what the fuck are we doing here?
But apparently, like I said, like this is kind of common information that I just wasn't even aware of. But even like apparently Dax Shepard talks about it on his podcast quite a bit.
That makes sense.
Halsey was recently talking about how she's on Lexapro for all this type of stuff. Dax Shepard has recommended propranolol.
That's the one I got, dude. That's the one I was talking about.
Mentions that that's what Kristen Bell takes.
Because that one is not addictive and doesn't have like the extreme side effects that Xanax has and that alprazolam have.
And then
I'm not a pharmacist,
my one
so this
other
is not
comment
pharmaceutical
here,
advice.
Because this is how some of this can apply to regular people, whether it's you have to be giving presentations for work, or you just want a little bit more self-confidence, or you want to be, just feel more casual in like public settings, once we're all back to that, because it could be weird when we are.
Oh, it will be.
A lot of what is mentioned here, and this was answers from the community, Dumas community, basically, some of which is knowledgeable, some of which is probably not. But what was mentioned numerous times beyond the drug cocktails is meditation. Meditation and therapy are also basically like, can essentially substitute in, not quite as well as the drugs, but can be a non-drug substitute.
They're the obviously more healthy, natural version of what those drugs give you.
As well as stuff like the Celestial Seasonings Tension Tamer and the Calm app and weighted blankets. All stuff that like...
They all swear by.
Helps you with like basically your sleep probably sucks too.
It's like...
As a regular person.
Like handling, they're getting way better treatment in every facet of their lives.
Yeah.
No, but like the handling of the pressure that comes with that insane lifestyle, because it is insane to sign up for that. Like, you have to have these other things to help you cope. And in the case of Hollywood, it has always seemed like that element of it that we have now, the therapy, the more healthy element of it that's been entered into Hollywood over the past 10, 15 years, really taken a hold, and like Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop and all this shit.
Yep.
That before was just like, pump them full of the drug cocktails and throw back another actual cocktail and like get your fucking ass out there.
Yes.
Like old Hollywood was very dangerously unhealthy with this stuff, and they're just now starting to turn a corner where it's like, hey, maybe instead of all of us popping every pill that exists, we could meditate for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That would be a better, more healthy option. Did you want to
Exactly.
touch on The Crown as well before we jump into our final topic of today?
I just to say, man, I'm just full of perfect segues today because one of the things that The Crown in season 2 actually alludes to and touches on is the original Dr. Feelgood. The term was coined from the doctor of JFK and Jackie Kennedy.
Yeah, man.
And they were also apparently constantly on cocktails of drugs for various.
JFK was like very sickly.
And yes, and it is alluded. It is I'm not sure I'm using the verb properly.
Implied?
But it's implied. Thank you. They allude to. It is implied that he was maybe even pretty much kind of on heroin.
JFK?
Yeah.
The things I've read about what they had to do to basically keep him alive and get him through like the day-to-day as weak as he was.
Yeah.
He was. I'm shocked he could think straight. Like,
Yeah.
it feels like they were.
And one of the storylines with Jackie is that, she makes some disparaging remarks while in Britain about the Queen. And when she eventually comes back to apologize to the Queen, and this, again, fictionalized version of stuff that actually did happen.
Sure.
So there's stuff added, stuff taken away, etc. Important to remember that. But she basically, one of the things she says is like that she was on like a crazy drug cocktail of like uppers and more or less like coked out.
And had like a fucking freak out, basically.
Yeah. And was just, word vomiting some of this shit.
I mean, I think it's an
So-
element of the whole celebrity culture that we've never really analyzed.
Yeah.
Like, how sober are these people? You know what I mean? Because like when you take a drug cocktail, for those of you who have or I have, you cannot. It's hard to function that
Mhm.
way. You feel better, hell, but you can't think very straight, and you say a lot of dumb shit.
Yeah. So we wrapped up season 2 of The Crown this past week.
Nice.
And I've really, really enjoyed it. And if you're not familiar, the first 2 seasons, the Queen is played by Claire Foy, and her husband, Prince Philip, is played by Matt Smith, both of whom are absolute powerhouses on the show. Claire Foy is the reason to watch the first 2
Yes.
seasons of the show.
She's amazing.
At any rate, and is incredible. And it's so weird having this feeling like, I feel guilty right now because we're about to go into Olivia Colman's turn as the Queen,
Right.
who is nothing short of a treasure, of a just a gem of an actress, and seemingly as a nice, lovely person as well. We've loved her in The Favorite. We loved her in Fleabag. People love her on Broadchurch. Like,
Yeah.
she's amazing
Yes.
in every sense of the word.
She's a real treat.
She's a real treat, and I'm
Yeah.
like, man, Olivia Colman, but like,
Yeah, fuck.
what happened to Claire?
I
Claire
know.
Foy?
I walked away, and I've harped on how much I love Olivia Colman over and
Yeah.
over and over, and I still haven't watched The Crown since it switched.
And so, to be honest, I've not done the research. I haven't Googled around, but I am curious. Like, the season 2, this is not a spoiler. It basically leaves off after Queen Elizabeth has her 4th child,
Right.
and that was in the mid 60s. And so I'm wondering if like after that, things were pretty tame for a while. 4, 10, 15 years, and they wanted to make the time jump, and that's why they recast. Or if Claire Foy and Matt Smith had only signed on for 2 seasons, and then were like, we want to do other stuff, or like, I'm just a little bit more curious about the backstory there
Right.
as to like why they didn't continue with Claire Foy and Matt Smith. So
Yeah, I can't remember if the time jump was included. I know that
if you know, jump in the Discord and tell me.
yeah. Hit us on the Discord, which is strong, the cord,
Yes.
or the Twitters or the social medias, and holler at us with your Crown.
But I'm loving The
insights.
Crown, by the way. Just throwing it out there. Very much enjoying it, and we'll be starting Olivia Colman season 3 soon.
Right on. All right, I want to talk about WandaVision first. Some business to take care of. This episode of Oysters, Clams, and Cockles is also brought to you by Lucy. Lucy Nicotine is a company founded by Caltech scientists and former smokers looking for a better and cleaner nicotine alternative. Finally, a tobacco alternative that doesn't suck. As everybody knows, or for those of you who have listened, I left tobacco in 2020 finally after like 16 years of using tobacco products, and Lucy was one of the reasons I was finally able to do that. They have a phenomenal gum created for people, not patients, with 4 milligrams of nicotine that comes in 3 great flavors, all delicious: wintergreen, cinnamon, pomegranate. They're all great. Love them all. They also have a lozenge with 4 milligrams of nicotine and cherry ice flavor that's really, really delicious. Each and every flavor they make, I have tasted. It is great. They're all convenient and discreet, can be enjoyed anywhere, on a flight, even at the gym. I've been chewing Lucy while we work out on occasion, believe it or not. I like the extra jolt, and apparently that's a thing that many other people enjoy too. It's 2021. Get rid of the cigarettes, unplug the vape, throw out the dip, get some Lucy gum or nicotine lozenges today. This is the real deal. A subscription to Lucy comes directly to your door each month. It's simple. You don't even have to leave your house because Lucy has delivery down. You just go to lucy.co and use the promo code OCC at checkout to get 20% off all products, including gum and lozenges. That's Lucy, LUCY.co, code OCC at checkout for 20% off. Start this year by making a better you with Lucy, code OCC. Warning, this product contains nicotine derived by tobacco. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. Now, Barrett.
Lucy.
Let's talk about some WandaVision.
Yes.
I got caught up all the way.
You're all caught up. All right. So the last 2 episodes that we saw, one takes us all the way out of sitcom world. And then the other goes like a little halvesies, basically.
And they're both horrifying. Everything's got shit is hitting the fan.
And we jump into our 80s sitcom for this most recent episode. So how did you feel about leaving sitcom world and getting the whole kind of like expository, this is what is happening over here in Marvel Cinematic Universe world and how the teams are tackling it and surveilling it, basically?
This was amazing. If for no other reason than that the undertaking in and of itself, the pitch, the originality behind this. Oh, we're going to do 3 episodes, however many they did, in this one fucking very specific way that is then going to completely change and just become a part of the story of this bigger story. And the way that they pull you out of that, I mean, it was incredible. Obviously, we see the woman who's a part of whatever organization. Sword get inserted into the episode, right? We don't really know where she came from. We're like, wait, what's happening here? And then Wanda freaking out and ejecting her from the bubble, which gives us our first insight into, oh my God, she's like she clearly is, even knowing nothing about Wanda and Vision, really, she clearly had some type of artificial life situation going that, based on the information I was given by my dear friend Barrett and everyone in this community, I'm aware of Vision's passing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes.
That this was clearly some attempt to live her life, as it were, before that disaster occurred. Now, having no information about that timeline, how that works, there have been bits and pieces where, like, girlfriend has had to pause the episode and be like, okay, so let me explain to you what's happening here. For instance, when everyone's reappearing in the hospital and everyone's freaking out, I was like, hey, this is fun, but what? What the shit is happening? Like, that was so confusing for me, dude. But no, with the way they were able to parlay from the fun, quirky, going through the generations of sitcoms, which was just a thrill ride if you love TV anyway, to that being applied to this bigger picture problem was amazing. It was really, really well done.
Yeah, I of course had been enjoying the show very much because of sitcom world and because of the references that they were making, and it was
the lighthearted ride was a blast.
It was very meta, and so it was a little. I was like, okay, here we go. Like I knew it was coming. I knew they were gonna have to pull us out and like give us the Marvel piece of this at some point. But I thought that Randall Park and Kat Dennings' characters are both very charming. They've been in some of the other movies, but now they're getting a little bit more screen time, a little time to shine and be some comic relief. And I thought they were both good at that. And I don't know. I talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I'm liking this. I'm liking this in TV show format.
It's much more appealing to me. Like we said,
and it is making me, like, after every single episode, Disney Plus is like, you want to watch Avengers: Age of Ultron now? Because we know that you don't know what they're talking about, so you probably want to watch this movie to get yourself caught up.
See, and that's the thing we've discussed.
And I'm like, yeah, I do. I want to watch.
It's such a big undertaking, though. Like for a guy like me, I've literally seen, a couple. I've seen fucking Iron Man. You know what I'm saying? Like I've only seen a few of these, dude. The undertaking is absurdly daunting. So to have this sort of window into the Marvel Cinematic Universe that had an original enough angle to get me hooked, and that I don't have to know anything about these two characters, but that also I'm kind of getting drawn in by the cool side information that people are feeding me, and I'm starting to Google stuff, and now I'm like, fuck! Because I do feel like eventually this leads to me watching all these goddamn movies, and there's like 40 of them at this point.
At least I'm pretty sure that I can say, and again, there are some key movies that I have not seen. Obviously,
for Christ's sake, here we go.
I've not seen Ultron, and I've not seen Endgame.
Right.
I've seen all the other Avengers movies, and I've seen a lot of the other.
But you're saying you don't have to watch them all.
No, I'm saying
there are tentpoles.
Watch the Avengers ones.
Okay.
Don't go watch
So all the side movies are sort of
because all the individual movies, all the ones that are like, the Hulk and Iron Man,
Ant-Man.
and Thor and Ant-Man, they just tie into the Avengers movies.
okay.
They're like
So they're
setups.
not necessary. It's just more candy, and you know more if you watch them.
Exactly. Yes.
See, that's the thing about it that's appealing, though.
It is.
That's why I'm like, you bastards. This is genius.
I'm getting the idea and the sense here that the important information for WandaVision is all
from
in
Avengers,
the Avengers,
not from the side movies.
Avengers films.
So how many Avengers films are there? 4?
I think 4, maybe 5. There's the Avengers. There's Age of Ultron. There's a third one.
The Avengers, Avengers Age of Ultron, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame.
Okay, so 4. Yeah.
Yeah, so 2012, 15, 18, 19 are the 4 we got.
Yeah.
Holy sweet Jesus. The 23 films they've put out in the MC universe have grossed $22.587 billion.
Yeah.
They basically figured out a way to turn big Hollywood into like a multi-international, like Apple or Amazon or like a fucking corporation. Like that's a business.
Yeah.
Like that's a business.
Yeah, it's insane.
Wow, dude. But WandaVision is a very refreshing superhero. Look,
it's great.
I love the dark versions we've gotten of the superhero. Oh, look, the anti-heroes. Oh, look at these crazy fucking heads exploding. And what is that show we're watching?
The Boys.
The Boys. I love The Boys. I loved the other one. The one that HBO did. Watchmen. Big fan. This is not that. This is a more classic superhero situation with the twists where you're like, wait a minute, is she good? Is she bad? Is she doing this because she snapped? Or is this like, and also, I'll say the one thing that bugged me about WandaVision is that the insertion of the corporate shield guy who's like, I'm now making the decisions here is like the most, that guy's been in 50 of these.
Yeah, he's in all of them.
And I can't.
Not that guy specifically.
But that character, like, exists in every goddamn superhero story ever where you're just like, oh, the corporate shrill who doesn't know anything but the rule book.
Who's a regular-ass, boring human who has to come here and impose his will
who's
on our
clearly a little jealous of their powers.
Good superheroes.
Yeah.
Just get out the way. Just get out.
Yeah, get out of the way.
Yeah, no, he's an important cog in the in the storylines always. But so it's been fun and I'm very much enjoying the show and like I said, it is definitely, I will be watching Age of Ultron and Infinity and Endgame, the two that I've missed, probably pretty soon.
All right, I'll bump the movies up my to-do list. The 4. I want to be very clear about this. I will not divulge you people with 40 movies. I won't just be another dollar sign in this $23 billion industry. Anyway, that'll do it for today's episode of OCC, produced by Myrriah, Gossett, and Mike Moody Garcia of Permanent Record Studios in Austin, Texas. Huge thanks again to our sponsors from today, Athletic Greens. Go to athleticgreens.com/dragon, and Lucy. Go to lucy.co and use that code OCC at checkout for 20% off. Support our sponsors who support us and keep us in business. And, of course, another way to support us here at OCC and get even more OCC, have even more fun with Barrett and me, is by joining us on patreon.com/Oysters, Clams, Cockles, where each and every week we're tackling an episode of the HBO crime classic, The Sopranos. And we are through episode 10. Episode 11 is this week. Barrett and I watch on Wednesday evenings. We record on Thursday afternoons, and they're usually up by Thursday evening for you to enjoy. If you want to get on that same schedule as us, we highly recommend it. You can catch up very quickly. Only 10 episodes so far. We've done 10 podcasts. They're all on patreon.com/Oysters, Clams, Cockles. When you join a tier right now, you can breeze through them. It is a lot of fun. Barrett having never watched the show before, me having seen it several times. Lots of unique angles, takes, and discussions about different things, especially the 90s content and all the social references and the way that the show has chosen to tackle different elements of our society. The Sopranos, one of my all-time favorites. If you know anything about me, you know that. Barrett is having a blast so far as well, starting to see some of the potential here long-term through 10 episodes. We got 3 more in season 1. Join us now. Go to patreon.com/Oysters, Clams, Cockles for an ad-free exclusive episode of OCC each week focused on The Sopranos right there on patreon.com/Oysters, Clams, Cockles. We are on social media, believe it or not. I know that's shocking. We're on Instagram @Oysters, Clams, Cockles. Follow us. on Twitter at Clams and Cockles, Facebook.com/Oysters, Clams, Cockles. I'm Ross Bolen. On Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat at WRBOLEN, at WRBolen. My first name is William. I also have a humor and mental health podcast, the Ross Bolen Podcast, available wherever you listen to OCC. Mr. Dudley, where can we follow you on social media?
Yeah, I am on social media at Barrett Dudley, Twitter and Instagram.
The Gram. Good stuff. At Barrett Dudley. Follow him too. And until our next helping, goodbye, friends.